First of all, they sing but sing won't follow. They sing
There's a lot of moments from Ed, Edd, and Eddy that fans remember. When Double D took his hat off, when Ed finally yelled back at Sarah, when they tried to escape in a self-made helicopter. This is an episode that you can't forget. Closing out merch week, this review was sponsored by the Slushy J design. Designed by @TeevesArt, it's such a cool design that might have been my personal favorite. It has a tweaked color palette, has sort of a bleeding design, and that makes it perfect for shirts. And also, who doesn't like a slushie? So if you want to check it out, go to alphaj.show/merch and get yourself some official Alpha J merch. A mysterious boomerang swings into the cul-de-sac. We never get the origin of it or why it performs the magic it does. This is one of those episodes that you cannot watch if it's your first episode. This episode rewards those who have watched the episode for a while and has grown to know and enjoy the characters within it. Case in point, we have Jimmy here play with his stuffed animals only to have them crushed. Kind of.
It's no use. I'm so inadequate.
Rough. Kiss those baby toys goodbye. Huh, Fluffy?
So of course, with the purple toy shredded and the pinkish toy actually completely fine in the next shot, Jimmy is of course vengeful at Kevin. However, as the episode built up, Jimmy's strength is non-existent. What is he to do?
Look at me, I'm a bruiser.
Hey! Whoa.
I am Jimmy, hear me roar!
You can kind of see what this will do to everyone. It's a simple plot here, but here's the thing with simplicity. While more complex cartoons get more complicated to make cohesive and well done, simple cartoons also have their own set of problems. From my own observations, a simple concept is just as hard to make a great series out of than a complex concept in many aspects. You have fewer elements to work with, sure, but now those elements have to hit even harder because you don't have anything else to work with. There's no drama, no romance, it's pure comedy. That doesn't mean it's easy, you just fill in a ton of jokes. That means it's hard because you have to fill it with jokes that hit, and nothing will hide the ones that are not a dud. Besides maybe the god Tom and Jerry, I look to Ed, Edd, and Eddy when it comes to great all-out slapstick. There's just something about the show where even if it looks like people are getting hurt, they get back up and then get hurt in an even worse but creative way. Unfortunately for Jimmy though, he doesn't realize that his burst of adrenaline or testosterone, it's connected to the boomerang, so once it's gone, so is he. You know, Kevin was a really good sport about all of this. I know if I got slammed to the ground via a thrown mailbox, I wouldn't just be slightly annoyed. It's like if someone hit me with a bowling ball. You have no permission to do that. I do not consent to that at all. So last verse, same as the first, they set up the scene. Sarah is mad at Ed for eating in her room, justifiably I might add, and finds the boomerang that made its way into Sarah's toy box. I do want to note something that's pretty uncommon when it comes to Ed, Edd, and Eddy episodes. This episode takes a backseat to the scam that they're doing. Being a season 4 episode, they can get away with that. You could be shown 100 scams in depth, and then have one episode where it's not at the front and set in position, it's fine. So the obvious appeal of the episode is, okay, let's see what the boomerang does to the next person. Well,
Don't hit me!
Ed, how could you say that? I love you, silly!
that's right, Sarah turns into a very nice and kind person, which also makes sense. And we'll get into the ones that kind of don't. So Sarah, after threatening to beat Ed with something, is surprisingly nice, sweet, loving, caring, and cuddly. Now after being yelled at, this initially confuses everyone. Knowing Sarah and Double D's interactions throughout the series, I found Double D running away from Sarah to be extra funny. Of course, Eddy, in the midst of all of this, just wants to get the scam done, but not with that boomerang around. Of the boomerang attempts within this episode, while it made sense, it was kind of eh. It wasn't outrageously funny, nor was it weird enough of a change to be fascinated by personally. It also just kind of makes enough sense for it to be something to move the story along, but it wasn't bad by any means. Of course, because the boomerang is a novel concept to all that are involved, once the boomerang is away, she turns back to normal, much to everyone's confusement.
A fine bed for rolled seeds, yes, Victor?
So to cut to the chase, after this, the boomerang fixates on the Eds, which means that Naz, Kevin, Johnny, Plink, and the Cankers unfortunately are not hit by the boomerang. If I were to guess where it came from, it does make a tiny bit of sense that it came from the Cankers, if that was a theory. An alpha theory. They don't give me much reason throughout the series to not believe that the Kanker sisters aren't at least some form of supernatural. Although you could make the argument that their unrealistic nature is because the cartoon is so freaking wacky that everyone seems that way. But it's so interesting to think how Naz could have been, or Kevin, or Plank. Some people have even took it to discuss how Eddie's brother would be if he had the boomerang. Maybe he'd be a decent human being. So remember earlier when I talked about some of the boomerang's personality alterations making sense? With a hardworking, old world-minded, aggressive son of a shepherd Rolf, what do you think he'd be if he was hit with the boomerang? Would he be a city boy who absolutely can't stand farming or animals? Would he speak proper English and be very regal in appearance? Would he at least speak in first person?
Who threw this? Watch him, I do hickey at Rolf's posterior!
He yodels? He yodels. This one I don't understand. The boomerang has set up that we're supposed to be seeing changes as the opposite of the situation. Jimmy tries to lift up the mailbox and then he can't, so that when he gets the boomerang, the opposite happens, and he can. Sarah is going to beat up her brother, justifiably I might add. Like, I don't even know how you eat cereal and get the green muck on the wall like this, but regardless, with the boomerang, the opposite happens. So she loves her brother and wouldn't dare do anything violent. So if you're building up that Rolf is farming, if we're using the same internal logic here, Rolf should do the opposite of farming. Is the opposite of farming yodeling and I just never knew? I might be uncultured. It's also very, very, very interesting that Rolf is the only one who, while under the spell of the boomerang, is self-aware to understand that he is not himself and is self-aware to beg for help. No one in this episode, besides Rolf, seems to be aware of their actions while holding or being touched by the boomerang. I don't know why Rolf's situation is so out there, because nothing else in this episode seems to suggest that it should mean something. I mean, it was pretty funny though. But now it's Ed's turn.
Chasing Phantoms, a dissertation on unifying field theory and its effect on leptons and quasars. By Eddy.
Of course, since Ed is seen as an idiot, the opposite happens. So he's not an idiot, he's a genius with the boomerang, which piques Double D's interest in him, rather than a scam, which wouldn't have worked at all, by the way. Sarah is ticked off, Jimmy is probably all the way in Mexico by this point, and Kevin doesn't even buy into scams unless he's really skeptical, and usually in a similar fashion, wants to prove the trio wrong in front of all of his friends. It also hits Eddy.
That's a good widow, baby. Don't drink too fast now, or you might get gas.
And more infamously, Double D.
Ew, bro, I'm sizzling in this heat. Natural. The man's uniform sure is crimping my style.
Funnily enough, there seems to be tons of mixed perception on this. You either find this funny, and you're dying laughing at this, or you're creeped out, and you don't think this is funny at all. So what side are you on? Let me know in the poll. For me, I found this funny. They went out of their way to save this for last because Double D makes this work. The way he makes a giant spectacle out of being hot is just so ridiculous, I can't help but find it funny. The boomerang also rotates between them frequently, so they go from being confused at either what happened to them, confused at what's happening to the other Ed, or flat out in the boomerang's control. This natural sense of ramping up the chaos is something that the episode mastered a long time ago. This is just overlapping. It's an overall good episode all around, and it just makes me miss the days of slightly mean slapstick shows. We don't really get much of that anymore. The boomerang hits all of them.
I'm getting the need to feel the breeze between my knees. That's the ticket.
And it ends with a fully new Double D, and that was Hand Me Down Ed. You ever notice how the episode titles for Ed, Edd, and Eddy don't really have much to do with the episode itself? Pretty weird. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and participating in Merch Week. This is the last video you'll be hearing about my merch for a while, unless I have a sale or a new design, or it's been a while. What did you think about this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you liked this episode, you should check out my Did Ed, Edd, and Eddy Start Off Well video, and my review of the finale, Big Picture Show. Special thanks to the patrons of July, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.